The rise of electric vehicles has taken many by surprise, including the introduction of e-bikes and e-scooters, and that's exactly what we're looking at today. It's called the Honbike Uni4, and it can be found for £1,699 in the UK, $1,699 in the US, and across Europe for €1,799. Now in this video, which has been sponsored by the manufacturer, we'll be covering everything you need to know about this e-bike. Now if you want some further information about it, make sure you check out the links down in the description below. Now to kick off this video, we have to talk about its electric range, because of course that is one of the most important factors when looking at an electric bike in comparison to a traditional bicycle. Now here you have got a 432 watt-hour battery that's built straight into the main tube frame, and therefore means that you cannot remove it and thus charge it externally from the bike. But on the flip side means that the Honbike Uni4 does have a much better design and furthermore better ergonomics, because the batteries are not being weighed down towards the front or in terms of the rear, therefore throwing off the overall weight balance. Now the manufacturer claims that you're going to get roughly 100 kilometers of range from its battery pack, and that translates to roughly 62 miles. Now that's actually pretty impressive for an electric bike that has its batteries hidden within its frame. Furthermore, given that the bike itself is actually targeted towards commuters who might be going in and around the city, that is furthermore going to suffice for a lot of individuals. Now it's worth pointing out that if you do want to charge the bike, there's a charging port that can be found towards the rear axle, and therefore means that you'll have to have an appropriate area to actually charge the bike. For example, if you have a garage, or for example, if you can bring it in at home. Now the charger itself is included in the box, which is no surprise over here, but it does take you roughly 4 to 4.5 hours to charge from 0 to 100%. Furthermore, the charger itself is very sleek and slender and reminds us of somewhat of a laptop charger. It doesn't get too loud either, nor does it get too hot, which is certainly appreciated in comparison to some of the other alternatives out there on the market. Now, in order to utilize the battery that you have available to you, there are 3 available assistance modes. They're called Eco, City and Sport, and are denoted by green, blue and red arrows respectively on the vivid LCD display, which by the way will also show you battery that you've got remaining and also your traversing speeds. Furthermore, you can know if it's actually paired up via Bluetooth to the app, and we'll touch upon that further down in this video. Now, in order to access the different assistance modes, you'll want to initiate the plus or minus button on the left-hand side of the handlebar. They're very intuitively laid out and very easy to access, so therefore you're not going to have any problem while using them on the go. Now, if you do run out of juice, or of course if you simply do not want any level of assistance, you can simply disable it by going all the way down on the minus button. This will effectively make it into bicycle mode, meaning that you're just going to be traditionally pedaling around without any sort of assistance from the rear hub motor. Speaking of which, this brings us on to performance, and here you have got a rear hub motor that is rated at 36 volt 250 watts. It gives you an assist speed of 15.5 miles an hour or 25 kilometers an hour, which is the legal limit. You've also got a boost torque of 45 Newton meters. Now it's worth noting that in comparison to alternatives out there on the market, the Honbike Uni4 actually operates on a Gates carbon belt drive, giving you a 1:13 ratio. Now indeed, this means that it's going to be a lot cleaner in comparison to traditional bikes or indeed e-bikes out there, and furthermore gives you the ability of customizing it while on the move, and also something that is a lot more silent, which will certainly be appreciated by a lot of consumers. Now this sort of configuration might actually put off some consumers, specifically when it comes to longevity. However, in this respect, the manufacturer gives you a maintenance-free claim of 10,000 kilometers, which is certainly impressive to say the least. Now furthermore, here the manufacturer uses the Smart Hon technology, which effectively gives you some uphill assistance thanks to a built-in gyroscope. Therefore, it's very smart enough to notice when you're going uphill in order to kick in that rear hub motor and therefore help you while you're going on the steeper inclines. So this does actually perfectly lead us onto riding quality, and here the bike itself does not have any front or rear shock absorbers, but instead has a shock absorbing design. Now what we'll say over here is while riding around the streets of London and going around Richmond Park, we didn't feel any degree of discomfort, but of course that will be very subjective, so we'd be intrigued to know if you would have liked to see the Honbike Uni4 including at least front shock absorbers. Now, if you do want to come to a complete standstill, you will be pleased to know that there are front and rear disc brakes. Of course, like any sort of disc brakes, you've got brake pads, and here you'll want to replace them every so often, at least, of course, depending on how often you're going to be riding the bike. Now, as for the frame, it's a 7000 series aircraft grade aluminium material with 0 sharp edges and a 3-tube design. Indeed, it's pretty aesthetically pleasing and will stand out in comparison to other bikes out there on the market. Furthermore, there's a built-in kickstand which is very sturdy and is great because it means that you don't have to worry about faffing around and adding an attachment. On that note, you do also have rear and front fenders, or mudguards as we would say in the UK. This is very handy because it means that you're not going to get any sort of spray, be it at the front or at the back. Now, the frame itself is available in a black and white finish and is IPX6 rated. Therefore, you're not going to have any sort of worries when traversing any sort of dust or indeed rain. Furthermore, the electronics, such as, for example, the LCD screen that is found at the front, is actually IPX7 rated, which that means it can be actually fully submerged, although of course we would never recommend that. Now, as for the wheels, they're made out of a die-cast TRU magnesium and have also got a 5-spoke design, which certainly does look the part. As for the tyres, they are 27.5 inch with a 2-inch tube, worth considering if you do want to change the tyres or indeed if you get a puncture. Now, with all of that, it is worth considering that the bike weighs in at 20.2 kilograms, and given the batteries can't actually be removed, it's a worthwhile consideration. Equally, the max load is rated at 120 kilograms, and yes, that includes you, the rider, and any sort of luggage you might be taking. Speaking of which, the recommended height sits between 160 to 190 centimeters, which is between 5'3" to 6'2". The dimensions of the bike will be also on your screen, so you can size it up for yourself. Now, a few other things that we'd like to point out is that on the left-hand side of the handlebar, you'll find a bell, which is useful for alerting any sort of pedestrians, and you'll also be able to initiate the front LED light via the use of the physical buttons. This will also dim the LCD screen, which is a handy touch given that you might be riding at night. It is worth noting, however, that the rear LED light is manually operated only and also uses 2 AAA batteries. Now, on the notion of operating the bike, there is also a walk mode, although it is pretty fast. It can be initiated by holding down the minus button found on the left-hand side of the handlebar, or by initiating the throttle on the right-hand side. This can also be useful when you're at a standstill, for example at a traffic light, and you just want to get up and go rather than having to pedal and then have to wait for the motor to kick in. Now, on another note, it is worth pointing out that there is the Honbike app. Although this is not a necessity, it's a good complementary app to use alongside the bike, as it allows you to lock or unlock the bike and furthermore keep your progress. You can look at it by the day, week or month view, check the total distance or the ride duration, and even the average speed or the maximum speed that you've achieved on certain trips. Now, finally, we would like to have a quick word about the assembly of the bike, and indeed over here is available to be ordered online and thus might come in a flat pack box. Now, in this respect, there is a very comprehensive manual that comes included in the box, therefore making it very easy to understand. And furthermore, Honbike do also provide a very handy YouTube video so you can actually see it visually represented. In our case, we had no such problems in terms of assembling the bike, and it took us roughly half an hour. Of course, it depends on the level of expertise that you have. So there we have it. Hopefully you've enjoyed this detailed overview of the Honbike Uni4. We'd be curious to know what you make of it down in the comment section below. And of course, if e-bikes, generally speaking, are actually for you. Now, if you've enjoyed this video, definitely do consider dropping a like, subscribing and hitting that bell notification, all of which would be greatly appreciated. As such, I've been Chris from TotallyEV, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye.